So if you haven't heard the latest rumors in this crazy election, the latest one is that the Clinton campaign is working with the occult and ancient spirits in order to win the election. Now, believe me, I know how ridiculous that statement sounds, and it sounds so unbelievable and so far-fetched that a lot of normies are going to refuse to hear any information whatsoever and dismiss any sort of evidence that's out there. But the proof that I'm about to show you is actually a bit hard to dismiss, and so I'm going to tell you things that maybe you've heard before, and I plan on telling you some things that you haven't heard before. And sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Over the last 48 hours, the term spirit cooking has been trending on social media. It comes from an email leaked from WikiLeaks involving John Podesta and Marina Abramovich, where she's talking about looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. So if you do a quick search, you can find a video that was recorded in the 90s, looks like something out of the Blair Witch Project, of this very woman, the woman in the email, demonstrating spirit cooking. And it doesn't sound like your mom's cooking. It's not your average grocery list and sweet potato pie. It involves breast milk, sperm, menstrual blood, and a few children's statues, along with cutting yourself. Now, some in the mainstream media, as well as diehard Hillary fans, are trying to already dismiss this as nothing more than art. Marina Abramovich is a declared performance artist, and they say that this is normal for rich elitists to get off to, and that she has, no connection whatsoever to the occult, even though you're watching her paint a child with pig's blood, even though she likes the number 666, which is in her Twitter account. She carves pentagrams into her flesh, and she likes to hang out with skinned goat heads. Nothing, that your occult member would be a part of. But what does Marina herself say about this? If she absolutely has nothing to do with the occult, I'm sure she would, just come out there and say it. It turns out she was actually asked about the occult and magic, and in a Reddit Ask Me Anything thread from 3 years ago, Marina was asked, what place do you see the occult having within contemporary art? Can magic be made, not simply appropriated or performed? So if she doesn't have anything to do with the occult, she doesn't know anything about it, I'm sure her response would be, what are you talking about? This is art. This has nothing to do with the occult. That's not what she replies, though. She replies with, everything depends on which context you are doing and what you are doing. If you are doing the occult magic in the context of art or in a gallery, then it is art. If you are doing it in a different context, in spiritual circles, or in a private house like the Podestas, or on a TV show or on a YouTube video, it is not art. The intention, the context for what is made and where it's made defines what's art or not. So she doesn't just say that, I don't know anything about the occult magic. She tells you when it's magic and when it's just for show. Or is it just for show even when she says it's just for show? I mean, if she came out and said, this is my real religion, this is what I believe, I'm sure a lot of people would laugh at her. But if she tells you that it's art, then she can have all these energies and beings actually partaking in the ritual without them even realizing it. So this is, if you actually believe the woman who's doing it. I mean, do you want to believe the newspapers who's telling you that this isn't what this is? Or do you want to believe the woman who's flat out says, this is what I'm doing and this is what it means? And how many art projects have an accompanying book, which this one does, she wrote a book for this, and a list of ingredients needed, which this one does. Also a fun fact, the Clinton Foundation, which has been reported gives less than 6% to actual charity, donated $10,000 to Marina as a grant. And that's not the only weird thing people are finding on the Podesta emails. In several emails, for some reason, Podesta sent this picture, which has a 14 on one hand and a fish on the other. The fish is representative of the hand of the philosopher or the hand of mysteries, which symbolizes the transformation of man into a god. Again, ties to the occult and to Masons. Some have noticed that on his left middle finger, it looks like he's wearing a Band-Aid. which some suggest maybe is where he actually literally gave his middle finger to Satan. This, though, is just pure speculation. There's no way to know for sure. Maybe he just cut it normally, or maybe he didn't. We don't know. Marina's name also comes up in emails between Hillary and Uma that were just released by the State Department. So it's not just Podesta who's talking about this lady. And there's also emails that show that this woman was invited personally to the campaign launch for Hillary Clinton. But again, that's not where the occult and ancient god talk stops. In one email that includes Hillary Clinton, they reference okay, and Minerva agrees. And do you think the last paragraph violates the owl Minerva rule, which Minerva is a Roman goddess? In another email, there's a sentence that reads, with fingers crossed, the old rabbit's foot out of the box in the attic, I will be sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Moloch. Moloch, another ancient Canaanite god associated with child sacrifice. And I mean, if you start digging into owls and ancient symbols and everything, I mean, you're going to go down a rabbit hole that you probably don't want to go down. I mean, it's really crazy stuff. You may have heard about the cremation of care. This comes from the secret society at the Bohemian Grove, where presidents and elites from around the globe, they gather. This is a real thing that happens. And there's this huge owl, and they do a mock sacrificing of a child to this owl. Now, you could take my word for it or not. There's actual video that somebody snuck in and grabbed of this actually happening. So, I mean, the proof is right there. There's no conspiracy theory to it. It's actually a thing that happens. And also, if you follow the news, you may have heard about Jeffrey Epstein, a very close friend to the Clintons, who was charged with pedophilia and owns an island that's nicknamed Orgy Island. And it's been confirmed that Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane, named the Lolita Express, over 20 times visiting this island. And I've also seen news reports just in the last few hours that Hillary Clinton also visited this island, but there's direct proof of Bill doing it. And on this island is another strange-looking temple, which again has an owl depicted on it. But what about Hillary herself? Is there anything occult-like directly linking her? Because we're talking about John Podesta, the guy in charge of her campaign. And we've also mentioned, some really weird emails that mention ancient gods and everything. I've seen one email from Hillary where she's mentioning Mother Moon, stuff like that. But what about harder evidence? It turns out that if you're looking for it, Hillary has an interesting past with this sort of behavior, because there was talk openly in the 90s about her talking with the dead. Bill Clinton, you can go find the video on YouTube where he mentions this actually in a speech that he's giving, where he's talking about his wife talking to the dead. It's also been reported by CNN, multiple people. Hillary has even mentioned it before. She hasn't mentioned it, anytime recently because it doesn't poll very well, but talking to the dead is something that usually occult people do. One of Hillary's biggest mentors, whom she's openly acknowledged, is Saul Alinsky. He wrote the book Rules for Radicals. Hillary thought so highly of him that she wrote her college thesis paper on him and maintained contact through handwritten notes, some of which we actually have today to prove that relationship. He actually wrote in his most famous book this sort of dedication. Here's what it said, quote, "Lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from our legends, mythology, and history. And who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which? The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer." And of course, his own kingdom being hell. He also was asked later in life in an interview with Playboy magazine, which you can go watch the video for this. He was asked about an afterlife and where he would want to go. And he explained that he would want to go to hell if there is a heaven and hell, because hell is where his kind of people hang out. Bill Clinton wrote in his book, My Life, about how he had just lost a bid for Congress in the 70s, and then him and Hillary traveled to Haiti where they were introduced to voodoo. They watched a man rub a burning torch over his body and walk across coals without being burned, a woman screaming, grabbing a live chicken and biting its head off. He wrote that they were basically mesmerized by this, and it was from that trip in Haiti that he returned and decided that he would run for office again, and he did so and won. So there's a lot of information out there, and I mean, there's a ton of stuff that I didn't even include in this video just for the sake of time. But I mean, it's weird. And for years we have heard quote unquote crazy conspiracy theorists talk about how the elites are involved in sex trafficking and occult rituals and pedophilia. And I, like many of you, have dismissed a lot of it and just laughed it off, saying that there's no real proof of any of that happening. But with these emails coming out, it's kind of hard to dismiss. It's just sitting there staring you right in the face. And just in the last week or so, look at South Korea. Totally unrelated to this. Well, I would assume that it's totally unrelated, but there's a huge controversy brewing over in South Korea where the president is apparently under the control of some cult. And so people are going nuts over there because this was found out. So do these spirits exist? I don't think they do. But the fact that these people that could be ruling the country think they do, it's kind of scary. That does it for me, The Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.